Today, we're exploring a fascinating era in American history, the period between 1690 and 1763, when the British Atlantic colonies experienced immense growth and transformation. Here's a surprising fact. Between 1700 to 1770, the population in the British mainland colonies skyrocketed from about 260,000 to over 2 million people. That's nearly an eightfold increase in just 70 years. But this wasn't just about numbers. It was about the formation of new communities, each with its own distinct character, shaped by geography, labor systems, local economies, and evolving ties to the British Empire. In this video, we'll break down how these regional differences emerged and why they mattered in the long run. Let's start with the regional differences among the colonies. New England, the Middle Colonies, and the Southern Colonies. In New England, which includes Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire, the geography was challenging. The land was rocky, winters were long, and large-scale farming was difficult. But this region turned to the sea. Natural harbors allowed for thriving industries like fishing, shipbuilding, and transatlantic trade. Families operated small farms and businesses, and Boston grew into a major port city by 1700. New Englanders exported dried fish, whale oil, lumber, and rum. In return, they imported luxury goods from Europe: textiles, tools, sugar, wine, salt, and even smuggled tea to avoid British taxes. In the Middle Colonies, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware, the story was different. With rich, fertile soil and wide rivers, this region became known as the breadbasket of the colonies. Farmers produced wheat, flour, beef, and pork, much of it exported to the Caribbean and Europe. Philadelphia and New York became commercial powerhouses, importing manufactured goods and building regional wealth and independence. Philadelphia, in particular, surpassed Boston by 1775 to become the largest city in British America. The Southern Colonies, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, had a warmer climate and longer growing season. That made them perfect for cash crops like tobacco, rice, and indigo. Agriculture dominated, and labor was the foundation of this system. Initially, indentured servants filled the labor demand, but by the early 1700s, enslaved Africans became the primary workforce. By the 1770s, over 90% of enslaved Africans in the southern British colonies lived in this region. Slavery became deeply entrenched and legally protected. Each region's economy developed under British mercantilism, an economic system designed to benefit the mother country. Under this system, colonies were expected to send raw materials to Britain and buy back manufactured goods, ensuring that wealth flowed back to the empire. To enforce this, the British government passed the Navigation Act beginning in 1660. These laws require that colonial goods be shipped on British vessels and that some products, like tobacco and sugar, only be exported to England. European imports had to pass through English ports before reaching the colonies. But these laws were poorly enforced. During a period known as salutary neglect, colonial merchants often smuggled goods or bribed customs officials. That changed after 1763. Following the costly 7 Years' War, Britain needed revenue. They began tightening control over the colonies by enforcing trade laws and introducing new taxes: the Sugar Act, Stamp Act, Townshend Acts, and Tea Act. These efforts met strong resistance, particularly in cities like Boston and Philadelphia, where colonists had grown accustomed to economic and political autonomy. Long before the Revolution, colonists had developed strong traditions of self-rule. Local assemblies like the Virginia House of Burgesses and the Massachusetts General Court allowed colonists to have a say in their own affairs. These bodies frequently clashed with royal governors, planting the seeds of political independence. Colonial society was diverse and complex. Immigrants from Germany, Scotland, Ireland, France, and the Netherlands added to the mix, especially in the Middle Colonies. By the mid-1700s, many communities were no longer majority English in background. Labor systems also shaped daily life. While the North relied more on family labor and small-scale production, the South turned increasingly to enslaved Africans. Events like Bacon's Rebellion in 1676, where white and black laborers united in protest, pushed elites, according to many historians, to rely more heavily on racialized slavery as a tool for control. Native American communities also played a significant role. Some cooperated with colonists, others resisted. As colonial expansion intensified, conflict became more frequent. Diseases, such as smallpox, introduced by Europeans, decimated native populations, but powerful nations like the Iroquois and Cherokee continued to influence the region's politics. By the 1760s, a distinct colonial identity had formed. Though most colonists still called themselves British, shared experiences like commerce, religious life, and opposition to British policies were forging a new sense of unity. Port cities became centers of political coordination, and colonial merchants led boycotts and protests that crossed regional lines. In the end, these colonial differences and the ways people adapted to them set the stage for revolution. The fight for independence didn't come out of nowhere. It was the result of decades of population growth, regional development, and a growing desire for self-determination. So what have we learned? From the rocky coastlines of New England to the fertile farmlands of the Middle Colonies to the sprawling plantations of the South, the colonies were diverse but connected. These differences shaped the culture, economy, and politics of early America. Here's something to reflect on. How did these regional identities influence how different groups understood and fought for the idea of liberty? Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and join us next time as we continue our journey through American history.